Yaffee program on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here, filling in for Yaffee. He is having some quality family time this week, which I'm so excited for him to have. I think I mentioned it earlier this week. One of my colleagues over at 1819, his wife had a baby on Monday, and so I accidentally texted him and asked him a question. And I say accidentally because I meant to text another colleague, but when I caught my error, I was like, don't respond with an answer. Respond with baby pics. And I have been meaning to get more baby pics from Yaffee, but I'll work on that. Love the baby time. All right. Well, a lot going on today. Really a time. This Space Coast girl. Now, I don't do a lot of Huntsville radio. You guys know this. It's been a minute. So, but I do take issue with when the people trying to hijack my Space Coast, my Space City titles away from me. And Texas occasionally tries to do it. I hear it from Huntsville every now and again. But I am a Brevard County girl. I'm a Titusville, Florida girl. Now, so much so, we are just a space-centered community that when I don't even know if it was in high school or college, but at one point, we changed our phone numbers. I'm not kidding at all. We were 407, like Orlando, because we're just outside of Orlando. And somehow they managed to get 321 for 321 blast off. And I kid you not, to this day, I'm 44 years old. I still have my Titusville phone number because I just absolutely love that part of my life. I love everything related to space exploration, to, just the sense of wonder of that. In my kitchen now, I've lived here in Alabama for 13 years, but I have a ginormous, that was custom made for me by a friend and an artist in Tampa, but a custom made painting of what the reflection of a launch looks like off of the water. And so, when I say deeply ingrained into who I am, the space program is deeply ingrained into who I am. My high school had a retired space shuttle outside of it. So yesterday, getting to share that rocket launch with my two boys, my daughter was at volleyball, but getting to share the launch with my two boys and listen to it and watch them, they did the countdown and all of the things, all of the, checking off the list. And it was just an experience. And I didn't expect it to be that emotional, but this is the first one like this that they've had. Of course, we've seen some rocket launches and, SpaceX launches. Just here's a video of this, but watching that just took me back to a really good place and a really happy place. And I don't know that Trump gets enough credit for his support of what NASA has done. And I think this is phenomenal. So we're going to talk about this a little later today. In addition to my oohing and awing, we've got to talk about, drama at the State House yesterday. There's no other way to put it. There's literally drama at the State House. There was the Public Service Commission bill and the kind of mess around that, which continued all the way until they passed it, by the way. But that kind of what I thought was going to take center stage in the drama. But no, another kind of wild and crazy caucus meeting. And I have strong feelings about this. I can hardly articulate them. Let's see if I'll be able to get some of them out. But when you are in politics, I'm going to try to compare this to like a sports team or a metaphor that more people would understand, but you're a part of a team. And your team, or maybe even it's something like a family, your team's not always going to agree. Your team is, you're going to have leaders who you disagree with. And there's a time, a place, and a way to communicate those frustrations, and a time, a place, and a way to address them. I have no patience for. And I've seen it, it's happened off and on. I feel the same way when people write air quotes tell-all books. Oh, I'm going to tell you what went on behind the scenes and this political office or this campaign or whatever. It's one thing for journalists to do it. It's another thing for someone who is in the know, who is trusted, especially who doesn't have the permission of those who they're writing about. And it's not because I feel like politics needs to be this, behind closed doors, dark, dirty secrets, smoke-filled cigar room conversations, but it's because I understand the need for trust. So the idea of people taking recordings of closed door meetings, of people leaking those recordings in order to hurt political opponents, in order to gain strategic advantages, ooh, buddy. Now, we do not know for sure. I have sources, 1819 has sources. There are sources that have said that a recording was confirmed to have been taken. We, of course, know the first one and the fallout from that first one of the caucus meeting. But I feel really strongly about this. And I know that there are people who disagree. I saw people celebrating, woohoo, peel back the secrecy. But in order to work as a team, in order to get things done quickly, in order to communicate with one another, there needs to be a level of trust. I say, yeah, let's open up, and I'm for transparency. I'm for accountability, and strongly, by the way, but I am not for these secret recordings, for these tell-alls, for these, I just feel dishonest, to be honest. I feel it's dishonest to take a room in an environment where people are speaking to one another in a moment of trust and to exploit that. And I wish I had the text line open because I'm sure that there are people who disagree with me. My X is open. That's APRYLMARIE. But I want to get into that, what's happening in the state house. If you look around Alabama and you look at the Democrat Party, well, it'd be hard to do because they are in complete disarray and they have been for decades. And what I do not want to happen is I do not want the Republican Party, by way of internal, civil drama and civil nonsense that's best left for middle school. I don't want that to happen to them. And it's frustrating watching this. I think there's going to be growing pains whenever there's leadership changes, and we've seen some leadership changes at the party and within leadership. But I think that we really have to. Everybody who's taken going, woohoo, this is awesome. I think we need to take a step back and ask yourself, what are the purpose of these meetings? Are there times in life? Are there times on a team? Are there times when you're trying to work things out with your family, your spouse, and that's kind of like what this is, that you should be able to freely talk without worrying that you're on. Politicians are on. Most of the time, they're out in public, especially during campaign seasons. They are, they're messaging. They have to be guarded in what they say and how they say it and how it could be perceived, how someone could take it out of context. And that's exactly what happened to Ledbetter earlier this year. And I hardly know Ledbetter, to be honest. I've not really covered the House in the State House. But what happened to him was dishonest, that first recording. And I don't know that we're any better as a state because that happened. I think things have happened that are good as a result of that, but that doesn't make the underlying thing that happened good. So I want to talk about that a little bit more in detail. We've got, I somehow missed earlier this week, Riley Gaines coming to campaign for Jared Hudson. I want to talk a little bit about that. Oh my goodness. Now I have been on here, today is Thursday. I've been on here 3 full days already and have not mentioned any of the Candace Owens drama. And I for those who do not know, who do not follow me on anything, I think what she is doing is disgusting and despicable. So I'm going to get into that. Some of the latest of what's happening. Some of that was going on yesterday. Trump's speech. I've got a clip from that I want to play. So a lot to talk about today. Just jumping right on into news from the state level to the federal level. So hold tight. I'll be back with that stuff in just a minute.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here, eating an incredibly nutritious breakfast. On my left-hand side, I've got a cup of coffee, and on my right-hand side, I have Samoas. So we're eating Girl Scout cookies, and I would like you to judge me appropriately. That's what's happening right now. It's been a busy morning in my house. I think I mentioned this before, but my daughter is homeschooled, and so she's meeting with her. Well, I would say tutor; it's not the right word, but tutor today, and catching up on a few things, and so getting her ready to get out the door and getting ready for the show. I looked at the clock and I was like, "Oh, I haven't done anything to take care of myself." So here we are. Girl Scouts cookies are going to have to do until 11 a.m. That's what's going to happen. I would blame you, but I'll just say thank you instead. Okay, so I mentioned earlier the launch of Artemis rocket, and I kind of went a little deeper into this morning, just because, like I said, I think this is a great thing for our country. We have gotten to the point, and it aggravates me to no end, where everything has been so political. Everything is so political. And what I love is the moments that bring us together, the moments we can stand shoulder to shoulder and look at something or experience something together. We can help with something. One thing that frustrates me is you watch how we come together as a nation in times of need. And after a hurricane, after a big storm, after a big incident, and we come together, and it happens so quickly and so organically. We come together to help those who need our help. I wish we had more of that on the positive side. That's the crazy patriot in me. I look at, in terms of holidays, Independence Day. And somehow the left has even managed to start vilifying Independence Day. Like we shouldn't celebrate our nation's independence. We shouldn't celebrate the 4th of July. Oh, you're going to get your woke messages from that. But something changed yesterday. And for a period in time, no matter what TV channel you turn to, we were collectively watching the Space Center. We were collectively cheering for not just the astronauts, but for the people who were behind the scenes, in the rooms. And it was just a moment of like, this is awesome. So I found this clip. And I'll tell you why this clip is relevant, but I'm going to play this clip of this little boy who is interviewed by CNN on the launch.
Why do you want to be here? Why do you love space? Why do you love being a part of history?
We're going back to the frickin' moon, that's why.
And he says it with such enthusiasm. And so a cool thing happened this morning. That tweet, that message is going a little viral. Somebody put the actual F-bomb in there for one of the videos. But the head of NASA was like, this kid's getting a bag. Like we're going to celebrate this kid, celebrating how great this moment is. And I think it's wonderful. I think the wonder of this, and it puts a focus on those science and technology jobs, those the wonder of STEM that we haven't had in so long. Up to 400,000 visitors were expected to watch that launch. Now, I remember growing up. I grew up in Titusville. I remember growing up very vividly when there were shuttle launches, just going to school, because my high school you had to go along A1A or US1, and the number of people kind of camped out. Now that would be different now, because when I go home, a lot of that area has been built up. But the people who would come to town and just line the road and just to watch the shuttle. Now, of course, it was always a thing when they were scrubbed, which happened frequently. And you were like, okay, well, y'all are coming back. But to watch yesterday and you see people from the visitor center, see people from, just my hometown, there's something really cool to that. So 400,000 visitors were expected to watch it in person on the Space Coast, and over 3 million people tuned in to the NASA YouTube broadcast. So, I mean, quite the quite the experience, like I said. And I'm a little tongue-tied this morning. I don't know why. But I love everything about this. And I love the responses from not just here, not just the kids, but across the world. People getting really excited about this mission. And in a time where we're all so angry, we're coming right off of those freaking No Kings protests, coming right off of every single thing Trump and this administration does being divisive, looking at what's happening in Congress now with the shutdowns and the funding, the voter integrity bill, all of these things that are just nonstop. Us in your face, them in our face, us just all the fighting. Something about space exploration just makes me go, okay, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna be able to at some point, and I say this all the time, the pendulum will swing and we will realize that we have more in common than we have that sets us apart. And the really loud voices that are behind the constant fighting, they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose because we want, ultimately, at the end of the day, we want success. And watching this mission, I'm over here getting all like girly on us. Sorry about that. But watching this mission is just really cool to me. And so I'm loving it. And I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing for Huntsville. It's a great thing for the Space Coast in Florida. It's a great thing for Houston. And hopefully it gives us something to not yell about today. Which is funny, leading into an hour and a half of me yelling about Alabama politics, because that's kind of what I want to do. I mentioned earlier what's going on in Montgomery. And as I mentioned, the divisiveness, it's not just us versus them, Republicans versus Democrats, although, man, they're giving us so much to be peeved about. Before I go on to some more of the what's going on in Montgomery, I was looking at clips last night, and the Shamari figures. Did you guys? I don't know if you. I'm going to say I don't know if you, but if you don't follow 1819 News, I want to encourage you to check it out. There's a video of Shamari figures that is going viral. Now, Shamari figures, by the way, should not have the seat he has. If you're not familiar with this, I really do think, and both Catherine Robinson talked about it yesterday, Paul DeMarco and I talked about it. We got hosed in redistricting. Everybody knows this. This is a common knowledge. Well, maybe not the Democrats, because they essentially stole a seat. And they stole this seat for Shamari figures. Shamari had the opportunity to go to D.C. And I say this about Shamari. Shamari he's got a pretty... It's a Democrat district, but it was a competitive race between him and Caroline Dobson. But he has the opportunity to go and not be a radical leftist. Like, we look at Terry Sewell and go, yep, she's going to be hook, line, and sinker for everything the Democrats say. So Shamari Figures is in front of he's at a church is what the video shows. And he's totally fear-mongering about voter IDs. He says, how many people in here do not have an ID? Crickets. Not a single hand. This is what the Democrats think of themselves. This is what the Democrats think of their base. They literally think that their base can't get out and get an ID. And here we are as a nation watching Congress fall apart because they don't want voter integrity stuff. All right, talked myself into a break. We're going to be right back in just a minute. You're listening to Yaffee Show with Apryl Marie.
The Yaffee Program.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
The NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light, is coming to Pittsburgh. and it's your chance to witness the future of the game for free from April 23rd to April 25th. Feel the energy of the NFL Draft. See the Vince Lombardi Trophy and Super Bowl rings. Meet NFL players and legends. Enjoy interactive games and live music performances, and be there as the future of the NFL takes center stage. The NFL Draft starts April 23rd. Register for free entry at NFL.com/draft access today.
Vince Colonnese is redefining news talk.
I'm Vince Colonnese, host of the Vince Podcast. I'm bringing you the truth beneath the headlines of all of the nation's top stories.
In-depth interviews.
We feature newsmaking interviews with the top guests on the whole planet. And I'll ask the questions you only dream of other interviewers asking.
And a front row seat to the most important conversations of the day.
It's a show with an obsessive focus on what's good for America. You are going to love Vince.
The Vince Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here, having a little bit of a radio ADHD today. That's the only way I can describe it. I've got like 15 things I want to talk about. I'm all over the map. Excited to bring on my next guest, and actually so grateful for him, because I was messaging during the break like, can you come on? Brian Dawson, who is my boss over at 1819 News, and if you're not checking out his podcast, you are truly missing out. Just tells it as it is. Welcome to the program, Brian.
Hey, Marie, thanks for having me.
So appreciate the flexibility here. Well, I wanted to start with, you have been going to college campuses. Have you gone to 3 now, 2 or 3?
I've done 2 prove me wrongs, but I've been to 5 campuses total.
Wow.
So, and there's Q&As at all of them, but so I was at University of North Alabama, University of West Alabama, and Troy. I did speaking engagements with Q&A at the end, and then Montevallo. And then right there in Huntsville, the University of Alabama at Huntsville, I did a prove me wrong with Representative Ernie Yarborough.
Well, and I've watched some of that. What do you think were, and here's the thing, as I love that these kids are getting out there to listen. I think there's, even the ones who get out to listen like they're going to protest and then ask you questions and stand there like, good point. Or wasn't expecting that. What have been some of your best responses, you think, or not best responses, but kind of best back and forths you've had with these students? Because you've talked about some tough issues. I mean, everything from, the value of a life and why we need to all be pro-life, to just family, to values, Christian values, the history of the nation. What are some of the better questions and conversations you think you've had?
I think the key to those actually being effective is I can be short-tempered and I'm argumentative. I think all of us that are in kind of this political polemics space can be a bit, combative in our discourse. And so I really just pray that when I'm on these university campuses that I am able to maintain my composure and realize, hey, these are young kids, and when I was their age, I had some crazy thoughts, and really just try and engage their arguments. And fortunately, I've been able to do that at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I mean, there was a guy who was an actual avowed Satanist, part of the Church of Satan, and had a Hail Satan sweatshirt on. And he went into homosexuality and gave the old 1960s argument of, if it feels good, you should be able to do it. And, so we were able to really just engage and talk about, from a Christian perspective, not only does the Bible say you shouldn't, but why? And we got into, the conversations of, homosexuality is not procreative, and, marriage was created for many things, but it's supposed to be done in the confines of marriage and the covenant of marriage, and it's procreative. And obviously homosexuality doesn't do that. But, I could go on and on about that conversation, but I think the thing that's most interesting is the broad range of subjects, but the left, it's always the 2 subjects that they want to talk about. And because you kind of have conservative students, Christian students, students that are searching, and then you have your hard left-wing students. And all the hard left-wing students, all they want to talk about is homosexuality and abortion.
Yep.
For whatever reason. Like their whole entire movement, the left's movement, is built upon being able to kill your kids and have gay sex. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen, but it really is. And, so on the other side of the aisle, I'm fielding questions from everything from homeschooling to talking to girls about being a stay-at-home mom, to theological questions about infant baptism and everything in between. But I think the most interesting argument that was made, I think it's two, and it was made by the same young lady at Montevallo. She essentially said, would you think women use abortion as a form of birth control? I said, well, absolutely they do. I said, it's probably not their preferred method, but that's what they're doing, right? And she said, well, you have any idea how painful it is for a woman to have an abortion? I said, well, it's really hard on the baby.
I could have died that moment.
Yeah. And so that she didn't really know what to do. So she went and sat down, and then she comes back up a little bit later, wanted to continue arguing about abortion. And I could never say the question that she said because of how she phrased it. But the gist of it was, shouldn't we give, if a woman who is in poverty has been impregnated, shouldn't we give that baby the opportunity to not exist because poverty is hard? And my response was, should we kill all poor people? Right. And she was like,
the mental gymnastics, like the absolute mental gymnastics. And it's kind of comes down to, and I think that a lot of these, I say kids, they're young adults. These young adults have just been fed, TikTok level, these very superficial bumper sticker ideas. And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. The people who are saying these things, I like kind of connect with them on some kind of superficial level, and they don't have the depth. They don't think through this. Could you imagine being an adult who actually thinks that abortion should be used and readily allowed, if not celebrated, for those who are poor? Like, what in the world is happening?
But those arguments are coming from adults. Right, adults and left-wing think tanks, that are coming up with these, statistics about, how bad poverty is and everything, and then those thoughts from the think tanks trickle down into less well-argued versions, but it's all of the same principles.
Yeah,
right. The left really does believe this, and I think the most interesting thing, I listened to a lady named Rachel Wilson. Her and her husband, Andrew Wilson, are very prominent in kind of the right-wing podcasting space. They're on Joe Rogan often, and they have their own podcast. They're really big. And she is a, stay-at-home mom with 5 kids and has done just incredible work on feminism and going back to, women's suffrage and all this other stuff. It was probably the most interesting interview I've ever heard on Joe Rogan. If people want to go back and watch it, was a couple weeks ago. You can go back and find it. But she said the most interesting thing that women's suffrage has been used for, and again, I'm going to get absolutely roasted for saying this, but this is a woman who said this, who studied it, is that it was like what has become the premier issue of women voters, not all women voters, not you, not the women at Eagle Forum, not the women listening to this radio show that are conservative right-wing people like Moms for Liberty and stuff like that, not those women, but the overall, push from women's suffrage has been women voting for the ability to kill their child.
Frightening.
That is the number one issue among, the majority of women that we see coming to the polls to vote for Joe Biden. And it's like, they're not worried about economics. They're not worried about affordability. They're not worried about, the border. They're not worried about foreign policy. It's like, I have a right to murder the child in my womb and have it shot back out. Right. And it's bizarre, right? It is absolutely bizarre. And then, of course, second on their list is that we shouldn't be able to tell people they can't have gay sex. So very bizarre that the whole left-wing movement is built on those two things, and now they've added trans into it, which just made it weirder.
Frankly, it really is. It is bizarre. And by the way, the left, this has been for generations. You're right in terms of this. We're gonna put this, and we're gonna call it pro-choice because we would like to be able to choose to murder our babies. We're gonna put this as one of our central issues and really market it to starting at young ages. I mean, we saw at the University of South Alabama them having a party that basically celebrated abortion. I saw a story recently of instead of training training young girls to understand and appreciate giving birth and, the beauty of the process in a family. They were teaching young girls to assist in abortions. I mean, just skin crawlingly disgusting, messaging here. And I don't understand it. I can't at all.
Absolutely.
One of the best ways to counter this, by the way, is to have women see babies, hold babies, come and understand how great this is. I don't know if you saw the video of the young woman who was, she's probably 19 years old, and she was like, "I'm never having kids. I'm going to live, I'm going to live a life I enjoy and get to do what I want to when I want to." One of those. And then someone hands her a baby, like legitimately in real time. She's talking to her friends. One of them just had a baby. She gets handed a baby and she's like, "I want 100 of them." Like that.
Yeah, I want 100. I want to stay home. I want to bake sourdough, and I want to, And so the root of the whole thing that we're going on these college campuses, the title, the premise that I was going with, that I debated students about, was called Christ or Chaos. And it's kind of a catchy way of saying, hey, Western civilization was built on the idea that you want to govern in harmony with the way that God created everything. It's obvious that there's a creator. The universal principles that govern, the world and the universe, okay, they're observable, they're objective. And so this is the way that God made things. And so we should govern in line with those things, in harmony with those things. And, and so that's through his revealed word. So his word is obviously in harmony with the way he created things, because it's his word, but also what's revealed in nature. And so they call that the law of nature, and nature is God, right? That's what was written in our founding documents. And, I have 5 daughters, and none of them pick up trucks and tanks and bow and arrows and toy guns. I have 2 sons that do, but they always are walking around with their baby doll. They're holding their baby doll, and they even try and nurse their baby doll because they see their mom doing that, right? And they're taking care of it. And they've got little baby strollers. So that they do that. That's what they want to do naturally, right? And we have. Again, it's very demonic, the worldview that's come in and told women that that's actually evil and bad, or maybe not even evil. They say that's less than.
That's less than,
right?
Yeah.
That's less than. What you need to do is go find yourself in a cubicle, or whatever. But
well, and one of these days, you and I are going to get together. We're going to talk about this. The lies that are sold to women about, family can come later. Put your career first, kids later, and you can have both, but you don't want to miss this window of opportunity for your career. And it's a very deceptive movement. Well, so you've done a number of these. How many more pick up the mic events do you plan on doing?
Obviously, strange they throw at me. They've gone very well, and so long as I didn't go too far, which sometimes I can do, as radio listeners will know, and they keep inviting me back. I think they're talking about University of Alabama for a Prove Me Wrong debate in April, and then I think the next semester we'll be looking at potentially, again, Lord willing, and the TPUSA people still like me, we'd be looking at Stanford, Auburn, University of South Alabama, and then maybe even Ole Miss and Florida State we've been having conversations about. So
wow. Okay. I raised my hand and volunteered to go back to Florida State. That's where I graduated from. That's my school.
Awesome.
I bleed garnet and gold. I moved here 13 years ago. And when I moved here, everybody said, you got to pick a team, Alabama or Auburn. And it was Alabama, because that's where my best friend had gone to get her master's degree. We went to undergrad together at Florida State, and she went to Alabama. So I chose Alabama. Over the years, people have debated whether or not that's wrong, like a Jeff Poor or something. But Florida State is always where my heart is. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to call in. Tell our listeners where they can watch these videos in whole, how they can watch your podcast, all those things.
Sure. And the answer is the same. You can watch these Prove Me Wrong videos on my podcast. Easiest way to access my podcast is YouTube. Go in the search bar and just put 1819 podcast. Or if you go on any other podcasting platform, search the same and you'll find it. And so we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But YouTube is the easiest, most accessible way to get those podcasts. We usually publish one a week, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. And we cover everything under the sun. It's all very entertaining and engaging, but also informative, and educational.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking the time to call in this morning. I appreciate you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
All right. That was Brian Dawson from 1819 News. He's on the editorial side and has his podcast there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get more into Alabama politics, apparently.
It's the Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here. I'm laughing. I can't with this video recording details. Okay, so Todd Stacy has additional information on the recording. Now, Lord, I am not. So as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, State Representative Arnold Mooney, who is from the Birmingham area, there were reports that he was removed from caucus, and I really, it may be a very unpopular opinion, but I feel like there truly does need to be some level of when you're in a group and something is off the record, collectively off the record, you leave it off the record. Yes, I know as voters, as a radio host for that matter, as someone who publishes news, writes news stories, I want to be in the know. But in order for any organization or entity or something, with a lot of strong personalities, you got to imagine the people who run for office, in order for them to be able to actually get things done, every now and again, there has to be a moment where they can trust one another to speak freely and hammer out details to get the job done, right? And that's what caucus meetings are for. That's what caucus, as a matter of fact, our reporter at 1819 News, Craig Monger, quoted Mac Butler saying, caucus is like Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. It's the one time where I, as a huge transparency person, says you draw a line. You should be able to talk candidly. You should be able. Now, if somebody says something in caucus and you disagree with it wholeheartedly, and you want to walk out that door and you want to go talk about it on the floor of the House, you want to go put a press release out that says this thing is happening. You want to challenge someone publicly. That's a different story. But what stays in the room, what's said in the room, it should be said. It should be able to have a level of trust with one another that's not going to go out. So what just came out as I was on the radio, multiple sources confirm to Inside Alabama Politics that Mooney was seen with, this is me reading verbatim because that Mooney was seen with his iPhone perched on his belly, attempting to record an internal caucus discussion. Inside Alabama Politics, which is the behind the paywall side of Alabama Daily News, is told that Majority Leader Paul Lee snatched the phone from Moody's hand and, in something of a kerfuffle, escorted the Shelby County lawmaker from the room. The caucus meeting was Wednesday afternoon. They were talking about the Public Service Commission overhaul bill, which they had changed in the Senate, sent back, and they were trying to decide if they were going to take up the Senate version. Look, I'm not advocating for this bill. This entire everything about this legislation to me has been a train wreck from go, like an actual darn near literal mess of a situation. Voters deserve better. When the gas tax happened, when the gas tax and Ivy and company pushed the gas tax through, one of my biggest complaints about it was the lack of discussion, the lack of public discussion, and the lack of transparency and that sort of thing. And these Public Service Commission bills we've seen that this session. It was like out of nowhere where there's going to be a takeover, a reorg of the PSC, and then that kind of, literally just went up in flames. And then they came back with two new bills, and they've been moving with quite a quickness. And this has been just a disaster. But in situations like this, I do believe that individuals should have the opportunity to freaking hash things out behind closed doors and then go back, like I said, and hash it out in public. There, you go out there, you get on the floor, you get on, you stand in front of the press gaggle, and you talk about these things. But this latest report has got me cracking up. This is what cartoons are made of. If anybody has the ability, we've got Arnold Mooney with his iPhone perched on his belly, attempting to record the internal caucus discussions. Lord have mercy. All right, back in a minute for the second and final hour of today's show. You guys hold tight. Apryl Marie here for Yaffee.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Hey there, I'm Paula Pan. I help people make the smartest money decisions possible.
Do not ever worry about your salary. You need enough to make sure that you aren't in a bad financial position. Once you have that, your salary becomes moot. What matters from that point forward, upside gains. Any type of ownership stake or ownership potential, that's the money.
Remember, you can afford anything, just not everything. Afford anything. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Yaffee program on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here, filling in for Yaffee. I am joined in my home studio by Chloe the puppy. During the commercial break, my daughter got picked up and the dog made a break for it and busted in. And so we're going to see how this segment goes. You may hear a bark or two. This is live radio for you. Okay, and somehow I've managed to go all week. When it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to what's going on, this is something I do not usually talk at length about. Trump had an update last night, and I wanted to play a portion of it and get to some of the responses. So we're going to play a clip from Trump's speech last night.
As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing, in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before.
That was just one clip from the speech that President Trump made last night. If you haven't seen the whole thing, it's over. You can find it on the White House website or on pretty much every social media. Here in Alabama, the response, of course, overwhelming, which to be expected. Republicans in the state of Alabama especially our elected officials and our candidates, love them some Trump. But we saw strong responses both from Adderholt and Tuberville yesterday. Adderholt saying that the president spoke with great strength tonight about the threat posed by Iran and the progress being made to protect people and protect America and our allies. Iran must never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon or continue to threaten its neighbors. America and the world. I stand firmly with President Trump and our brave men and women in uniform as they carry out this mission with courage and resolve. May God bless them all. Mike Rogers, of course, gave a speech, the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, commending Trump for speaking directly to the people. He talked. His statement was before the president spoke, and said, "I look forward to hearing the president speak tonight and commend him for addressing the American people directly and transparently about our mission in Iran. His decision to act against Iran's radical regime was critical given the threat it posed to the U.S. security. I'm grateful to our brave service members for the exceptional work they are doing to successfully carry out the president's clear military objectives and to make the American people safer." I'll tell you what, here, and I've said this a lot, I say this a lot. One thing about Trump, and I know there are people who are like, no way, no how, get out of there, should never have been involved in this operation, get out of there now. And then there's the camp that says this was a long time coming. I'm in the camp of we really did know what a threat Iran posed. And we have been watching presidents, we have been watching so-called leaders talk in circles about this threat for decades now. And I really do feel like President Trump took action because he had the intelligence, he had the to know that we needed to do it now. The big thing with me on this is really the amount of information that we have gotten from go. And that's really been a hallmark of this presidency that is such stark contrast to Biden's. I mean, we get information in real time. We get it from the president himself more often than not, which is something, not only was Biden not doing that, Biden couldn't do it. I'm looking forward, looking towards, and I do this a lot. We've got so much time, before we get to the next presidential election. Here we are looking at most rational people looking at midterm elections, and I'm thinking about our bench. I'm thinking about where we go from here, and the individuals in Trump's cabinet who have come out in not just strongly supporting him, but strongly and being articulate. There's a word I could get out of my mouth. You've got Marco Rubio, you've got Hegseth, Secretary Duffy, you name it. We've got a pretty deep bench of individuals who the Democrats just don't have. They trot out the same people again and again with the same tired talking points. And, I feel very strongly. I watched the whole speech last night. Of course, Trump talks about those who have fallen, those who have given their lives. And there are, I believe, 13 now is what he said. And that is a tragedy. And that is something we should never forget. I feel very strongly about our support in the military, and I feel President Trump and Hegseth have made our nation safer now by putting the military back in a position where their strength, they're not kowtowing to the DEI, to the woke agenda. They're in a position where their defense and their readiness is something that is more than just talking points, but is an actual mission that they are showing they have done. So watching this last night, again, it makes me think, leaps and bounds by far better than anything we ever got under Biden, and God forbid anything we would have ever gotten under Kamala Harris. And then just, again, the level of transparency, the level of, we're going to talk to you. There was a period of time of like 2 days and people felt like they weren't getting answers. And then the answers started coming again. We're in the middle of a freaking military operation and the left is like, we demand information now. As far as information goes, I feel like if anything that's happened in my lifetime, this has been one of those where this administration has been out front, and Marco Rubio himself, standing, taking press questions. That is something that we really should be commended for. I do believe that Trump and his team, and they laid out their priorities, they laid out the goals, they laid out their clear objectives. The media will have you say they didn't know what they were doing when they were getting in. White House said, here are our objectives: destroy Iran's missile arsenal, annihilate their navy, destroy terrorist proxies, and ensure Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Like very clear goals here. Now, the plan to get out, they've talked about, and one of the things Trump did was detail every military action that's happened since World War I and how long it's taken. And so, as the left, loses their mind, he's saying, "Look, we're doing this, and we're doing this in a timely manner. We're doing this in a way that we're not going to be stuck there for years." So if you haven't watched that, I encourage you to. I'm going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll look at some of the other national headlines. Hold tight. You're listening to Yaffee with Apryl Murray.
The Yaffee Program.
Madison County deputies are working to learn how an inmate they believe died of an overdose got those drugs in jail. Jailers say they found Tevin Bennett's body.
Well, good morning. Apryl Murray here. Earlier this week we had an overcast gray day. Today is beautiful here. I am kind of ticking off, going through some of the top stories and headlines of the day. We have talked about the Artemis launch, and a little later I may have earlier today on the floor of the Alabama House, they talked about and celebrated Huntsville's role in that. So we may hear a little bit about that, coming up after the 10:30 break. I wanted to get into, and this is really, this is one of those things where it's a blessing and a curse not to have the text line, because I know this is going to really tick some people off, but I'm going to do it anyway in the spirit of Dale Jackson. But I have to say, and I've not talked about it in Huntsville. I think I've talked about it in every other media market I've been on, but I am so absolutely disgusted and infuriated by Candace Owens that I can hardly see straight. Every time I think she cannot go any lower in her air quotes investigation, she does. Every time I think she said the absolute craziest thing anyone can say, she manages to get crazier. And this week has been, it's almost like she's doing, I would say it's almost like she's doing it on purpose, but she is. She's saying the most insane things she can say for clicks. If you are a loved one, I feel like I should do some kind of PSA. We should all do some kind of PSA. If you or a loved one have gone down the Candace Owens rabbit hole and you are stuck and you think that this woman is any level of honest, then I really truly want you to talk to a sane person in your life and look at what she has been doing. Look at what she has been saying. Look at her, the just absolute absurdity of it. So yesterday, essentially, Candace Owens' team is offering to help Tyler Robinson's legal team. They are asking for all 600,000 documents presented by the prosecution, and they are attempting, Candace and her minions are attempting to use this to find a way to stop the prosecution. Now, there is no part of me, and I have watched some of this madness. I'm like, oh, well, let's see if they're on to something. Hidden planes and hidden tunnels and body doubles and, an Israeli, plots, secret plots, and you name it. Now they're talking about secret. She's talking about secret hospital. She doesn't believe he was taken to the hospital that he was taken to. How is anyone in any circumstances still following, and I say, how is anyone doing it? And yet she still maintains, just tons of followers and clicks. But at this point, she is offering to volunteer her and her followers for Tyler Robinson's defense team. The other day, she was talking about whether, if she was called to testify. Why on earth would a completely random blogger doing internet research with a treasure trove of trolls, why would they be called in a real and legitimate trial? Like, that's how detached from reality Candace Owens has become. Watching this unfold. Now, there was a point in time, and I feel like for a lot of us conservatives, where Candace Owens was making sense. And then she jumped the shark and started kind of going off the deep end before she left the Daily Wire. And it's progressed ever since Charlie's death. She is doing everything within her power to make his assassination about her. And it's so funny because when I've had this conversation on 99.5 in Birmingham, the sister station to this station. When I've had this conversation, I've had Candace supporters call in and go, "Well, she's just investigating." And I go, "Have you looked at what she's investigating? She's investigating tips and ideas she's had through dreams, things that come to her. This is a walking, talking lawsuit waiting to happen. But in the meantime, what this is absolute just fantasy land. We're going to connect things from 20 years ago. We're going to connect details of Erica's life from childhood. No matter how many times Candace has her ideas, her thoughts, her hypothesis challenged and absolutely just destroyed, decimated. Everything from taking photos of Candace out of context, which is something she's done this week. Her followers have found photos from long before Charlie's death and put them out there as recent. The attacks on everyone basically in a position of power at Turning Point USA. It is so gross. It is so vile. It is so completely detached from reality that I genuinely worry for people who are watching this. In any given podcast, and I follow a couple accounts. It's funny, they do we listen to watch her program so that you don't have to. At any given show, she will spend hours just doing nothing but speculation, guesswork, half-truths, and outright lies. And I cannot encourage enough. If you know someone who is who is spending their days watching, on the off chance there's people smart enough to listen to WVNN and then dumb enough to listen to Candace Owens, I want to encourage you to just seek out people who are pointing out the disparities in her air quotes investigation. It's not an investigation. It is a witch hunt. Worse than that, it is a biased witch hunt against everyone who she feels has ever wronged her in life, and every crazy conspiracy theory you can think of. Let's see. And I'm watching this in kind of in this train wreck and thinking, how do we get to the point where we as conservatives, and I know this, but how do we get to the point, and there were a lot of people early on, you look at a Megyn Kelly, that's a whole nother situation, a conversation for later. But people were like, well, let's give her let's give her some time. Let's give her some, some space to do this investigation. And what we have now is basically character assassination of Erica Kirk. Somebody pointed this out, and I really stuck with me. She is now digging deep into Erica's like everything in her life, her childhood, attacking her mother's illness, attacking everything related to that, to Erica's past. She didn't do this when Charlie was alive. Why did she wait till Charlie had assassinated, till Charlie was killed, to go after Erica? And it's because she knew that he would have come at her with everything he had. This is the mother of his children. This is a woman, Erica Kirk, someone that Charlie very clearly loved, very clearly respected, and to see what has happened, to see this, just tens of thousands of Candace supporters, and I'm convinced that a large portion of her support comes from foreign bots, but that some of that has been proven. But watching this, if you follow a conservative and they have not spoken out against the pure insanity that has happened there, I want you to ask yourself why. And I know there was a big, oh, this is all not organic. There's people are being paid to support Erica Kirk. That's madness. The person getting paid in this situation is Candace Owens, and estimates are that by traffic and a lot of it, I call it rage watching. People watching her just to defend Turning Point, to defend Erica, to debunk her stuff. But she's laughing all the way to the bank. One of the things I truly hope comes of this is, and where we've seen her sued, we've seen by the French, which is that's a whole different level of crazy to follow that and then watch her do this. But the Erica Kirk stuff, I sincerely hope that at the end of the day, every penny that Candace Owens has gotten from this series, I put that in air quotes, that she has done, this investigation that she gets, I hope she gets sued and bankrupt for all of it, for every single penny. Because while we have free speech, and we've seen this with Alex Jones, while you have free speech, you can't defame somebody. You can't accuse somebody of essentially murder, which is what she's doing. You can't, this is everything we've seen here. All of this, this hatred is just otherworldly for me. And I wanted to take a minute and talk about that today because for the last 2 days, it's gotten even more out of control than it had before. All right, when we come back, I want to talk about, as I mentioned, we're getting towards the end of session. Talk about what's going on here at the State House, what's gone on yesterday, and what it's looking like today. I mentioned earlier that here in Alabama, Riley Gaines came and did an event for Jared Hudson. She gave him some strong words of support, a strong show of support on social media. I'm going to get into that. Those things and more coming up here on the Yaffee program with Apryl Marie.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Next Roll with Vernon Davis. The transformative journeys of athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs.
Ladies and gentlemen, lights out, Sean Merriman.
I want to be the biggest and the best in what I do. And so whatever it takes, I'll get it done. In business and everything else, all I do is know how to fight and earn what I want.
My man, Malik S. What actor or comedian would you want to collaborate with?
Me, Jamie Foxx, and Kevin Hart in a movie. We said it on Vernon Davis podcast then, so we'll circle back and be like, yep, here go the clip.
Next Roll with Vernon Davis. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today's show just flying by. Let's see what we've talked about. We talked to Brian Dawson, the head of 1819 News, about his college visits and conversations he's been having there. One of the clips he mentioned was the young woman at Montevallo, and it was almost like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Every time you came up, you knew she was going to say something completely unhinged, and then he, like he said, he handled each of the questions, a lot more delicately than I might have, although I tend to try to have civil conversations, but some things are just dumb. Some questions are just dumb. So talk to Brian Dawson about that. Had to apologize for those of you who are big Candace Owens fans. Just if you are not following that, good for you. Absolutely good for you. Do not go down the rabbit hole. It is a mind poison. It is ridiculous what's going on there. Evil. I know there was a whole big to-do earlier in this insanity of people saying what she's doing is evil, but there's no other word for it. It's bizarre. Talked a little bit about the rocket launch, which brings me to the next topic. So I mentioned they're back in session today, all drama aside. And I guess that was one of the things I talked about this morning. State Representative Arnold Mooney being accused of resting his phone on him and trying to secretly record the caucus meeting yesterday as they talked about the Public Service Commission bill. But they're back in session today. They did something, and I can't decide. I wish I had the text line here. I can't decide if it's cheesy or cool. Might be both. But what they did is being the legislature, the state house, went over to the old state house building in the Capitol, or where they used to meet, and met there, which means that with that meeting this morning, traditionally where they have been meeting at the state house, and then the new building, some of these members will have gotten to, serve in, I put that in air quotes, in all three buildings. A little bit hokey, but kind of cute. What they did is they went to the old House chamber. There's a picture of them in there, which if you haven't done a Capitol tour, it's kind of cool. I've done it a couple times with my kids. But this was the first time that official legislative action took place in the Capitol building, the old House chambers, since 2009, when flooding at the State House forced lawmakers in the State House building to go over there to conduct business the old-fashioned way. And so we've got, this is, by the way, on Alabama Daily News with a picture there of them doing that. But we have some remarks this morning as they started out talking about Huntsville's role in yesterday's launch. I wanted to play. Okay.
I think we take for granted sometimes the role that Alabama has played in space. And with Artemis being launched this week and what's going on, I think we fail to recognize that a lot of that work that was done, well, most all of the work that was done to put man back to the moon happens right here in Alabama. And we should never take that for granted. And I think it's something that we can be proud of, we can hang our hat on, and as Alabamians, we can brag about. And so with that being said, I've asked the entire Madison County delegation, because they support the Space and Rocket Center immensely with a lot of different ways and gratitude, and with funding and with everything they do, they're always there for them. Chairman Lovern sits on the Space and Rocket Center board. So with that, I have asked him if he would to read something that we've written, or my staff has written, that I think is appropriate for today. So Chairman Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and you're absolutely right. At the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, we're certainly stewards of the storied past, the exciting present, and the bright future we have as Alabama's impact in when it looks at our stars and our journeys going upward to the state. And I've asked Chairman Garrett to come down here as well, because he certainly helps through him, and Chairman Reynolds supports through funds to help continue that mission of preserving our past and investing in our future through the Space and Rocket Center. Everyone in this chamber, your district plays a part, because all of Alabama contributes when it comes to our journey to space. Today, we take a minute to celebrate America's return to the moon by displaying the Space Launch System that is carrying the crew of Artemis II and the fabled Saturn V that took the country to the moon more than 50 years ago. Huntsville's Marshall Space Flight Center is responsible for designing, building, testing key components of the Space Launch System and providing real-time flight engineering support during the mission. Marshall was responsible for the primary development of the Saturn V and test firing of its massive engines that literally caused the Earth to shake under their power. Alabama has and continues to play a major role in this country's manned exploration of space, and we salute the brave men and women, past and present, and thousands of supporting team members that make these missions possible.
So really cool. The state legislature, I say really cool. Okay. You may not find it cool. I find it cool. State legislature, acknowledging Huntsville's role in yesterday's launch. You know, I tease, I am from the Space Coast. I'm from Titusville. And, Central Florida, and where you're going to see the launches, and of course Houston, just based on their end of things, get a lot of attention. Huntsville, honestly I'm not sure in terms of national coverage how much Huntsville coverage I saw yesterday, but the Alabama legislature not leaving that stone unturned. All right, well, let's see. I'm going to take a quick break here, and when we come up, we'll do the final segment of the show, look at some of what the Senate is doing and the House is doing. As a matter of fact, they're taking up the Senate is taking up today the Education Trust Fund budget. Go over that a little bit, and some of the more controversial bills that are still pending. You guys hold tight. You've got Apryl Marie here, filling in for Yaffee.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. The joy of live radio. So I had a little bit of a like, I don't want to say panic attack. That's not the right word. A little bit of a moment there. I'm doing the last segment, and out of the corner of my eye, I see 2 utility trucks pull up. I live on a dead end road, and now a man is climbing a power pole. So you never know what's gonna happen. I mentioned so really what they have to do in Montgomery, job is very simple. They got to pass budgets, right? And so as the clock runs out on this legislative session, they are on day 27 right now. They're really getting to those budgets. Today, the only thing on the Senate calendar is the Education Trust Fund budget, and a lot going on there. You know, it's such an interesting process to watch. I say it's interesting, probably kind of nerdy, honestly, but an interesting process to watch in terms of these ginormous budgets. This one, this one comes out. It is a $32.3 million allocation. I'm sorry, so the education, they approved, a $12.4 billion education trust fund package. Let me back that up. It's a $12.4 billion education trust fund package with a $32.3 million allocation for bonuses. This is for teacher retirees. So if you know any teacher retirees, if you worked 25 years, they will get a bonus of $300 or $25 a month before taxes. This is something that the lawmakers have been looking at doing. There's a number of changes in terms of what the governor wanted and what the legislature is doing. They are looking at a 2% pay raise for teachers, and so they're looking at that. Some of the changes, most of the changes, the biggest difference is that bonus, that $32 million bonus I mentioned. So we'll keep an eye out on those. I'm sure the guys will keep you posted. By time tomorrow rolls around, we'll get a better idea of what they're doing at these packages, and I can talk about that then. Looking at what's going on, it looks like as they round up this time in the legislature. Tomorrow, it reminds me, tomorrow I'm going to have on Mo Brooks with me, and I cannot wait to hear his take on this. You know, some of what I love most about Washington, D.C. are the members who are willing to take on leadership, to challenge them, to not just go along and get along with everything. And while there's something to be said for doing things in an orderly manner, there's also challenging in a very public way. I feel like it gets some of these things out that we ordinarily wouldn't pay attention to. I mentioned the Public Service Commission bills. The way that those packages were rolled out, like I said, very reminiscent of the gas tax, and that kind of came out of nowhere. There had been talk about it, and then very, very little public discussion besides this is what's happening. The Public Service Commission bill kind of came out that way too. It was like, this is what's happening. Here's what we're going to do. And it's always a disservice. I mean, absolutely every time, no matter what the issue is it a disservice to voters? Is it a disservice just to everyone in this state when there's not the opportunity to say, why are you doing this? Who is this consolidating power for? What are you hoping to accomplish? In this case, you look at the Public Service Commission races, and that, as I was sitting at the Alabama GOP on qualifying day, which by the way was quite the experience, the who's qualifying, who's not qualifying, but as we were watching, there was kind of this ongoing joke as people walked into the building, are you coming in to qualify for the Public Service Commission? Because so many candidates had. There's Public Service Commission Place 1, where incumbent Jeremy Oden is being challenged by Matt Gentry. But then that Public Service Commission Place 2, there is no air quotes incumbent, so to speak. Chris Beaker was appointed to replace his father, Chip Beaker. So he's currently serving on the commission, but it's basically a wide open seat. People will know the Beaker name just from having supported his father, but Chris is a new commodity. So that race ended up with, we've got the most well-known, obviously, candidate in that race is Jim Ziegler. You've got Brent Woodall, who's run for the Public Service Commission a couple of times. He actually used to work for the commission. You've got Priscilla Andrews, which I didn't know who she was, but of course, when I saw her name as a qualified candidate, I went and looked her up. She had a very, interesting, I shrug my shoulders, very interesting race. She ran for a local election, and some of her social media posts were colorful, to say the least. So she's in that race. But I think what's really happened is we as a state just haven't paid as much attention to the Public Service Commission as we should. I pay attention to it because I cover it, and I've gotten to know as you host events and go to events, and I can't encourage you guys enough to go to events where you have the opportunity to talk to candidates. They're everywhere. They're all the time. You can actually get to know shake hands with and get to know each people running for these statewide office. They're not nearly as elusive as they would seem. I mean, if you go to your Republican women, and I encourage you, even if you're not Republican, if you want to get to know the Republican candidates, go to the events. If you're libertarian or consider yourself independent, take the time to go to the events anyway, to meet people. Sometimes you look at a crop of candidates, and I find myself anyway going, I'm not really particularly thrilled about any of them. However, I got to know them, and this was the most tolerable kind of thing, right? Candidate. But go to the events and ask the questions. I had no idea who, I've known Jeremy Oden for years, had no idea who Sheriff Matt Gentry was until he came into this election. But one thing about being there that day, and I went the first day of qualifying and I went the last day of qualifying. I want to say I went one other time and covered another race, but I was upstairs working on a story for 1819 News, and the whole basically it looks like a house that's the the ALGOP headquarters, the Alabama GOP headquarters, and the whole building kind of shook with applause. Well, I wasn't made aware that any big candidates were coming. I'd been there for Tuberville, I'd been there for Marshall, I'd been there for a number of lawmakers. And so I go downstairs, and it is Matt Gentry, the sheriff running for Public Service Commission Place 1. And it really got me thinking that, people who are willing to get out there and work for these Public Service Commission seats, they should have their voices heard, and voters should get to know them. And what initially happened with the first public service bill that spectacularly failed was, essentially they wanted to appoint the whole thing and take that opportunity away from voters. Now, people did get engaged, and I saw it was obviously across the aisle. The same environmentalists that took over the Georgia Public Service Commission, they were a big part of that fight. But there were also strong conservatives who were just saying, we can't do this. And we didn't allow this to happen with our education, our Board of Education. And now look at what's going to happen because of that, because of, we fought as a state. And by the way, we got to do that as a constitutional, take a vote for a constitutional amendment on our Board of Education, State Board of Education. Now we look at what's happening on a national scale. You never really know the consequences of things immediately. But had we given that up, had we let those been appointees, you've got Trump in there now dismantling the federal Department of Education and giving the power back to the states. Had we given that up years ago when the legislature and the governor wanted us to, then as the powers returned to the states, we, the people, would not have had the opportunities that we're going to have now. So two of the most probably underrated statewide are the two most underrated elections that we have are those Board of Education seats, which are going to become so much more important as the power is returned to the state, as we expand school choice, as we see things here in the state start changing towards a place where now we are questioning what's in our classrooms. We're looking at the textbooks. Probably one of the most eye-opening experiences of covering education. I knew there were woke teachers. I knew there were woke programs. I knew there were woke, school administrators. What I did not realize is that we as a state are promoting ridiculous textbooks with those perspectives, even though we have a textbook process. If I do nothing else in covering education, one of the things I really think we need to do is change that process. But looking at kind of bringing this all together, looking at the ability to save our vote for that, I think that's why we are seeing so much pushback on what has happened with the PSC this legislative session. And it opens the door for so many more people to come out and say, look at what's happening in Montgomery, and we have to change it. And I do believe that change is coming. I believe that with Tuberville returning to the state and taking a deep look at what has become the Montgomery establishment, the Montgomery swamp, we're going to get an opportunity to kind of root out some of this behind the scenes stuff and not in the absolutely icky way that I've talked about earlier. All right, I have talked myself right out of the show. Tomorrow I will be joined by Mo Brooks. We're going to talk about all of the madness in Montgomery, and we will connect then. You guys take care and have a great day. Apryl Murray, filling in for Yaffee.
The Yaffee Program.
Hey there, I'm Paula Pan. I help people make the smartest money decisions possible.
Do not ever worry about your salary. You need enough to make sure that you aren't in a bad financial position. Once you have that, your salary becomes moot. What matters from that point forward, upside gains. Any type of ownership stake or ownership potential, that's the money.
Remember, you can afford anything, just not everything. Afford anything. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.